another edition of Titan Review. Get a chance to talk to Chris Kolon. Chris just got off the bus from all the way from New Jersey and Rutgers University. He had a tough game out there. But Chris, I want to start with maybe an easier question. You played at Rutgers, going home from Michigan back to play where you had a chance to play and develop as a young man. What's that like when you're driving on a campus for the first time? You've done it before, but it's got to be a special feeling.
Yeah, it's nice to step on that field in a competitive way. I guess I spent 19 years at Detroit. I'm probably more of a Detroit guy than a Rutgers guy, but I think to give all those kids, I think when you realize there's probably 5 to 6 home games a year, maybe less, in a big stadium like that. I think when I was in college, I probably took for granted all of how special those moments are. So, to give these Detroit guys that, don't have as much, great opportunity at, the highest level, a ranked team at the highest level in a big stadium and, to see some of the shortcomings and some of the really good stuff that those guys get. It's a pretty cool experience. And while I don't think the game went our way in terms of score, I think, it's a very interesting time in lacrosse with staggered starts and things like that. We're on our third game when most people are on their sixth game. I think we're getting better and better and better. And I think having two Big Ten tests in a row, it exposes everything you need to expose and it'll make us ready for our conference, which is ultimately the goal. The wins are great. Losses suck a little bit, but as long as you have a growth mindset and you're getting better every week, I don't know a better way to take a bus ride like that and have a great experience like that and play a team at the highest level. So
let me come back. Let me come back and just briefly talk a little bit about your experiences at Rutgers. And you get a chance to play in a stadium of 60 or 70,000. There's 1,000, 1,500 people in the stadium. Would you rather play in a stadium with 60,000 seats and 1,500 people, or in a facility that maybe only has 2,000 seats and you got 1,500?
Sure. I mean, you take a look at Ohio State where they have that, was it a couple thousand in there? I'm not even sure, but it's a smaller stadium with that same feel. I think you kind of get the same feel because what the Big Ten has is they have that filming requirement and what Rutgers, the one thing I'll tell you about Rutgers and that I love about that school and I'm really proud of is, it has a really small heritage. It was a small, all male school for most of its existence. And while it's, there's 34,000 students and, amongst the 3 major campuses, that New Brunswick campus, while they've grown it and they've, they're taking care of as many things as they can. It feels like a Big Ten school, but it also feels like a really small school at the same time. And I think they've done that with the stadium. It's a pretty intimate 60,000 seat stadium. It's a great place to watch a football game when it's full, but it's also, I think it's a pretty good place to play a game. The sidelines are really close to the stands and, it was raining pretty hard. So a lot of people were underneath the overhangs, but when you're playing in a stadium with all those lights and the Jumbotron and all that stuff like that, that's a very unique experience. We don't have replay, which every one of our opponents has instant replay that coaches are using to kind of go against us. We at least got a little bit of a look up at the Jumbotron to kind of see what happened. So, it's all, I think, a pretty cool experience.
Talk briefly about a 17-6 loss at Rutgers in New Jersey, long bus trip. Just briefly, talk briefly about busing that far coming home, because that's obviously probably 30 hours in a 48-hour period on a bus. And then the follow-up to that is that 17-6, you're 0-3 at this point. Looked like you might have gained some ground against VMI, but maybe the Big Tens are maybe a little more difficult than what you're going to play, and you're playing 2 Big Tens. And so talk a little bit about the game and how the bus trips affect you.
Yeah, 9 hours on the bus for us is not that bad. You look at our history, going to Hamden, Connecticut, Poughkeepsie, New York, last year going down to Mercer and things like that by bus. This 9-hour one's short. It is what we are. We don't, I would argue that if you're taking 40 people on an airplane, you're typically having to get up real early in the morning and maybe make with lacrosse bags, you're probably flying Southwest, so it's hard to find direct flights, and you're traveling around, and maybe you're putting different people on different planes, and there's issues with everything, right? There's no matter what you do. I think you take a group of guys, you throw some bags underneath, you put some food on the bus. We've learned some practices to make traveling as comfortable as possible, and kind of get there. You leave at 6 in the morning, you get there around 3, you check into the hotel, you have a little film, let the kids have about an hour, you go to practice in the afternoon, you have a great dinner. It just is what you do. You just kind of don't think about it as anything more or less than what it is. I think if you're, these Big Ten teams that are chartering planes, and some of the guys that we play are chartering planes, that's a whole different ball of wax. But I think it's all about the same. And I guess after 17 years, we don't think much of it. It's just what we do.
To give us an idea, the NEC that you're going into in 25, the ASUN that you're currently in and leaving, compare the Big Ten lacrosse maybe to football, and what would be the equivalent of the NEC on a football? Would it be the Mid-America Conference?
Yeah, so I always said to people, one of my comparisons with what happened with us going in the ASUN is, we're like Bowling Green football getting put in the Big Ten, right? Like,
Okay.
but we're busing the Nebraska, we're busing the Rutgers, and they're doing what they're doing. So we're a mid-major, and NEC, we got schools that look like us, that are budgeted like us, and we'll be as competitive as we can be in it. So yeah, it's going to be a great fit next year. But we got some goals this year that we really want to get into our conference tournament this year. So yeah.
So let's put Rutgers in the rearview mirror, since you played it and you've been past it. You're headed to Ohio State coming up. So my question is, that's 2 tough teams in a row, which certainly will get you ready for the rest of the league and the rest of the season. You play in the shoe, or you play in the new stadium?
We're playing in the new stadium.
So
Yeah, I mean it's a great venue. 2 great venues, 2 great teams, who can penalize you, really just penalize you for anything you do wrong. Ohio State's been a great partner to us, right? Like, they've played us every year since we've existed. We've had some, 1-goal games. We've beaten them once, and then we've had some absolute blowouts. But I think Ohio State, because Coach Myers, I think, is one of the best tactical coaches in the world ever. He will penalize us, and we can learn from it. So post game win, loss, Ohio State, there's not a better game speed experience, especially for a bunch of kids from the Midwest that as much as we want to practice at the speed we need to be, as much as they don't, some of the guys from outlying areas that we get don't understand about mistakes and how much you get penalized and the speed of the game. You play Rutgers, you play Ohio State. By the time we have Mercer, which is a very, very, very important game for us, we've got a swing where we have Mercer and Robert Morris, and we really want to win both those games. We have to be playing at our best for those games, and I can't think of a better way, win or loss, to get ready for those 2 games. So, record, I've never really cared about my record. I care about my conference games, and what I'm going to do to get these guys ready to be successful in that, because that's our way to the NCAA tournament. And I just can't think of a better way to do it than to play the highest level competition that you can play, right?
You've talked a lot about some of your younger players just not having the experience of being able to play at the level that they're playing. So again, you got 3 games when everybody else has played 4 or 5 or 6. When you essentially have a local roster, you do certainly have kids from all over the country, but the roster is much more based around this area.
Bunch of outliers, yeah, a bunch of outliers. Yep.
So when you're recruiting that situation, and is there consideration for maybe playing more games early and maybe playing more games against teams that are of the same level?
Yeah, the good news about being in the NEC is that will be easier for us. It's budget, it's cost containment, is why we haven't played the 5-6 games, right? We've got, we had a big amount of travel last year. We have a lot of expensive travel this year. So it's not that I don't want to play more. Like if I had my way, we would have played some guys around, around our level and these big guys, right? So in the ideal world, that's what we would have done. But if I have to cut one out, I would rather put us in a tougher situation now. So when we get to Mercer, that week of Mercer, Robert Morris, Utah, we're ready to win 2 or 3 of those. So that's kind of what is more important to me, and I think our guys have the fortitude for that and the mindset for that. I know I do, and I think most of the guys do. I think they understand that they're willing to fight, and that's I think the most proud of that Rutgers game. And I know the same thing will happen in Ohio State. Is I think we at least gained some respect in the fact that we played really hard. We played really hard for 4 quarters, so that's always kind of been our mindset. No matter if we're up by a lot or down by a lot, if we can play hard and gain respect that way, that's where it starts. So
After 3 games, are you getting better?
we're getting better. We're getting better. We're figuring some stuff out personnel wise. I can tell you the one thing again, you love talking about. I'm really frustrated about the fact that we don't have replay on our sideline, and every opponent that we're playing against does. That I think we could do a whole show on that, on the importance of that. And I think it's going to trickle down to high school at some point. Some of the wealthier programs are going to spend the 7 to 10 grand that you need to have that in-game replay, because I think that's one of the things that's tough for us to overcome, especially in the middle of the field while our opponents are adjusting on the fly for us. We're sitting on the sideline making what we think are guesses to what they're doing, and we don't have that ability to go back to an iPad and see what just happened and continue. It was nice to see it at the end of a play versus a score, but boy, it would be nice to see it all the time. It's it's if I could change something this year, I would bring that replay on our sidelines, but this university hasn't. We'll probably have it next year, but it's not something that's available to us right now.
Last couple questions, and briefly scouting Ohio State the last 5 years. Have they got exponentially better over the last 5 years?
Oh yeah, I mean the Big Ten is insane, right? I think with everybody in that Big Ten, spending more resources, dedicating more, their universities dedicating more to lacrosse and seeing the value of it. Those coaches have followed suit and done more and more and more with it. This is the Big Ten. I mean, you got the Big Ten and the ACC. Those are two of the best conferences, and watching those guys and watching the investment that the universities have made in them, they're following suit. And we could talk NLI and all the other things that some of those guys are getting that other schools aren't, but it's just the general investment is gone up and the level has rose. And I think most of those guys, and including Nick and at Ohio State and Coach Breck and all good friends of mine, they're just loving the fact that it's more and more potential, more and more potential. They can coach more, they can do more, and they all love it. So yeah, it's getting better.
Unrelated note: Maddie Brown is with the #1 team in the country based on inside lacrosse. Denver's now ranked #1. Did that surprise you?
Not at all. Not at all. And it's pretty cool. I think for guys like me who Denver is what's so cool. They're Big East. It's a non-football school. Yes, they invest in lacrosse, but not at the same level as the schools I just mentioned. He's got a bunch of kids on the roster from all over the world, but mostly from outlying areas, and they're hitting stride. They've got an older group, and that's where I'm hoping Detroit goes. Not, maybe not #1, but man, you look at a place like NJIT where they've got a group of really good juniors and seniors that are leading the way, and they got their first top 20 ranking from a team that's been kind of where we are right now. So you hope you can find a special group and grow with them and get there. And I think that's what is happening at Denver right now. It's very cool to see. So yes. That, but expected.
Well, the Buckeyes are on the schedule coming up. We hope the best for you, and we'll certainly have a conversation after Ohio State. We'll get a chance to take a look at the upcoming ASUN schedule
Yep.
and talk a little bit about hopefully the success that you had in Columbus, and looking forward to the ASUN schedule as we pointed out. And thanks for your time.
Yeah. Good luck. Start of Fenton. Like those kids a lot.